Peace is no longer your default setting. It's something you have to fight for. You wake up calm, and within minutes, something's already entered your mind. A notification, a headline, a message that shifts your mood, a memory you didn't invite, a comparison you didn't ask for. And just like that, your inner world is no longer yours. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world benefits when you are distracted. It profits when you are reactive. It feeds on your outrage, your insecurity, your fear of missing out. Calm people don't click as much. Disciplined minds are hard to manipulate. The Stoics understood this long before smartphones existed. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire collapsing under war and plague. Yet he wrote reminders to himself about patience, restraint, and inner control. Epictetus was born a slave, yet taught that no one could enslave his mind without his permission. Seneca lived in the chaos of Roman politics and warned that most suffering comes not from events, but from our judgments about them. They didn't live peaceful lives. They built peaceful minds. And that's the difference. Mental peace is not found in better circumstances. It is forged in stronger principles. In this video, you're going to learn 8 Stoic laws that act like armor for your inner world. Not soft comfort, not escapism, but discipline. Because if you don't guard your mind deliberately, the world will occupy it accidentally. And once you see how this works, you won't be able to unsee it. We've been taught to think that mental peace comes from controlling the outside world. If the job is stable, I'll relax. If people respect me, I'll feel secure. If the future looks certain, I'll be calm. But the Stoics flip that logic on its head. They argue that peace has almost nothing to do with circumstances and everything to do with interpretation. Epictetus opened his teachings with a sentence so simple it almost sounds obvious. Some things are in our control and others are not. That distinction is not philosophy for academics. It's psychological survival, because when you blur that line, when you treat uncontrollable things as controllable, you create anxiety. When you treat other people's opinions as verdicts, you create insecurity. When you demand certainty from an uncertain world, you create chronic stress. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about Stoicism from a quiet cabin in the woods. He wrote while leading armies, facing betrayal, and watching people die from plague. His private notes, later published as meditations, were reminders to himself not to lose his inner balance in outer chaos. That's what Stoicism really is. Not coldness, not suppression, not indifference, but disciplined perception. In this video, we'll walk through 8 Stoic laws designed specifically for modern chaos: social media pressure, endless comparison, information overload, emotional reactivity. These laws are not quick fixes. They are daily practices. But if applied consistently, they do something powerful. They make your mind harder to disturb. And in a world built to agitate you, that is a competitive advantage. Law 1. The circle of sovereignty. Shrink the battlefield. Most people lose their peace before 9 a.m., not because something catastrophic happened, but because they stepped into battles that were never theirs to fight. Someone didn't reply fast enough. The market dipped. A stranger posted an opinion. A colleague acted cold. And without realizing it, you declared war on things you cannot command. The Stoics would call this a strategic error. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you separate what is up to you from what is not as a motivational slogan, but as a daily discipline. Imagine your life as a circle. Inside the circle, your choices, your effort, your character, your attitude. Outside the circle, reputation, outcomes, whether other people's moods, economic shifts, algorithms, timing, luck. Here's the problem. Most people live outside their circle. They obsess over perception. They replay conversations. They try to engineer outcomes. They attempt to manage how they are seen. And the result? Chronic agitation. Marcus Aurelius ruled during war and plague. Entire regions were unstable. Armies were unpredictable. Advisors were self-interested. If he had demanded control over all of it, he would have broken mentally. Instead, he narrowed his focus. Just that you do the right thing. The rest does not matter. Peace is not about expanding control. It's about shrinking concern. Every time you feel disturbed, ask a brutal question. Is this inside my circle? If yes, act decisively. If no, release immediately. No commentary. No emotional rehearsal. No imaginary debates in the shower. Release. This is not passivity. It is energy conservation. Because mental peace is a finite resource. If you waste it arguing with reality, you'll have none left for responsibility. Here's a practical ritual. At the end of each day, write down 3 things that stressed you. Next to each, mark either C, controllable, U, uncontrollable. If it's U, train yourself to stop revisiting it. If it's C, design a concrete action for tomorrow. That's it. Clarity replaces rumination. Most anxiety is misplaced responsibility. You feel responsible for how you're perceived. You feel responsible for how others behave. You feel responsible for how the future unfolds. But responsibility misplaced becomes burden, and burden destroys peace. The Stoics weren't calm because their world was stable. They were calm because their focus was precise. Shrink the battlefield. Guard the circle. Everything outside it is weather, and you do not argue with weather. You adapt and move forward. Law 2, the discipline of interpretation. Nothing means anything until you decide it does. An email arrives. Short, cold, no emoji. Immediately, your mind fills in the blanks. They're upset. I did something wrong. This is going to be a problem. But here's what actually happened. Light hit your eyes. Your brain translated symbols. And then you added meaning. The Stoics understood a dangerous truth. Events are objective. Interpretations are optional. Epictetus said it clearly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That sentence alone can protect your mental peace for life. Because most suffering is not caused by reality. It's caused by narrative. You don't just experience events. You explain them. You narrate them. You attach identity to them. You turn small moments into large conclusions. A mistake becomes, I'm incompetent. A rejection becomes, I'm not enough. A delay becomes, everything is falling apart. But what if the event is neutral? What if it's just data? Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to strip events of the story he layered onto them. In Meditations, he wrote about seeing things plainly, without drama, without exaggeration. He didn't deny difficulty. He denied distortion. This is the discipline of interpretation. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, you choose a label. Most people never notice that space. They collapse event and interpretation into one instant reaction. That collapse is where peace is lost. Here's a practical shift. When something triggers you, say internally, that's one interpretation. Not the interpretation. One interpretation. That phrase alone weakens emotional intensity because it reminds you that your first story is not necessarily true. Then ask, what's a neutral explanation? What's a generous explanation? What's a growth-oriented explanation? This isn't toxic positivity. It's cognitive sovereignty. If your mind is a courtroom, most thoughts arrive as accusations. Your job is not to accept them blindly. Your job is to cross-examine them. Is this fact or assumption? Is this permanent or temporary? Is this identity or incident? Peace returns the moment you stop believing every thought you think. You are not required to agree with your first reaction. You are not required to dramatize inconvenience. You are not required to turn discomfort into catastrophe. The modern world trains you to amplify. The Stoics train themselves to neutralize. And neutrality is powerful because when events stop meaning everything, they stop disturbing everything. Control your interpretation, and you control your inner climate. Law 3, voluntary silence. Reduce the noise, restore the mind. Your mind was not designed for constant input, yet the modern world ensures you rarely experience a moment without it. Headlines, opinions, messages, podcasts, short videos, endless commentary. Everyone reacting to everyone else reacting to something else. And you wonder why your thoughts feel crowded. The Stoics understood a principle that feels radical today. What you consume shapes your character. Seneca warned that spending too much time in crowds weakens the mind. Not because people are evil, but because energy is contagious. Anxiety spreads. Outrage spreads. Comparison spreads. Today, the crowd is digital. You carry it in your pocket. And every time you open your phone without intention, you invite thousands of unfiltered opinions into your psychological space. Peace cannot survive constant intrusion. Mental clarity requires silence, not permanently, but deliberately. Voluntary silence is not about escaping the world. It's about choosing when the world gets access to you. Marcus Aurelius would retreat inward even while surrounded by political chaos. In Meditations, he reminds himself that the mind can withdraw into itself and find calm at any moment. But you cannot withdraw if you never disconnect. Here's the law. Reduce unnecessary input. Not all of it, not dramatically, just intentionally. Ask before consuming anything. Does this inform my action? Or does it merely stimulate my emotion? If it doesn't help you act better, think clearer, or fulfill your duty, it is likely noise, and noise accumulates. Try this discipline. No phone for the first 30 minutes of the day. No reactive scrolling after 9 p.m. Scheduled news consumption instead of constant updates. Notice what happens. Your thoughts slow down. Your reactions soften. Your baseline anxiety drops. Silence creates psychological distance. Distance restores perspective. Most people seek peace by adding something. A new routine, a new hack, a new technique. The Stoic way is subtraction. Remove the unnecessary. Remove the loud. Remove the reactive. When you control your inputs, you protect your inner atmosphere. Because if you don't choose what enters your mind, someone else will, and they rarely prioritize your peace. Law 4. Premeditation of loss. Rehearse hardship before it arrives. Most anxiety is shock. Not pain, shock. You don't just suffer the event. You suffer the surprise of it. You assume stability. You assume permanence. You assume tomorrow would look like today. And when reality shifts, your peace collapses with it. The Stoics trained against this. They practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Seneca advised occasionally imagining poverty while wealthy, not to become negative, not to spiral, but to reduce fear, because what you mentally rehearse loses its power to terrify you. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Everything you have is temporary. Your health, your status, your comfort, even the people you love. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly of impermanence. In Meditations, he reflects on how quickly generations rise and vanish. This wasn't morbid, it was stabilizing. When you assume permanence, you cling. When you cling, you fear loss. When you fear loss, you lose peace. But when you accept impermanence, two powerful shifts occur. Gratitude increases, fear decreases. Because instead of demanding that life remain unchanged, you begin appreciating it while it's here. Try this practice. Imagine losing something you value. Briefly, calmly, your job, your phone, your home, your reputation. Then ask, if this happened, what would still remain? Your skills, your character, your ability to act, your capacity to endure. The Stoics believed resilience grows when comfort is not taken for granted. Peace becomes stronger when it is not dependent on fragile things. This law does not make you pessimistic. It makes you prepared. Prepared minds are calmer minds. Because when hardship arrives, and it feels familiar, not catastrophic, not unfair, just part of the human condition. And when you stop being shocked by reality, you stop being shattered by it. Peace is not built on denial. It is built on readiness. Law 5. Dear duty, let mood be irrelevant. One of the fastest ways to lose mental peace is to consult your emotions before you act. Do I feel like it? Am I motivated? Is this convenient right now? The Stoics would consider that a dangerous habit because emotions fluctuate. Duty does not. Marcus Aurelius woke up knowing he would face incompetence, ego, betrayal, and conflict. He wrote reminders to himself that he was made for this work, that his role was to act justly regardless of how he felt. That is the law. Anchor yourself to responsibility, not mood. Mood is weather. Duty is structure. When you allow mood to dictate action, you create instability. Some days you overperform. Some days you withdraw. Some days you spiral because you don't feel right. Peace disappears in that inconsistency. But when you define your role clearly, As a parent, a leader, a student, a partner, a professional, something changes. The question is no longer, how do I feel? It becomes, what is required? Epictetus taught that each of us occupies roles in life, and virtue lies in playing them well. You don't control applause. You don't control outcomes. You control whether you fulfill your function. And fulfilling your function creates quiet self-respect. Self-respect is a powerful stabilizer because much inner turmoil comes from avoidance, unfinished tasks, ignored responsibilities, difficult conversations delayed. Avoidance breeds anxiety. Action dissolves it. When you do what needs to be done, even imperfectly, your mind settles, not because life becomes easy, but because you are aligned. Try this shift. At the start of the day, identify one core duty. Not 10. 1. Complete regardless of mood. Notice how your internal dialogue changes afterward. Less guilt, less restlessness, less background tension. The Stoics did not aim to feel good. They aimed to act well. Ironically, acting well produces a deeper, more durable peace than chasing pleasant emotions ever could. Mood will rise and fall. Let it. Your commitment to duty remains. And stability comes from what remains. Law 6. The fortress of self, detached from external validation. One of the most insidious thieves of mental peace is the need for external validation. Every like, comment, compliment, or critique has a potential to disrupt your inner calm. If you allow it, most people unconsciously hand over the keys to their mind to others, letting fleeting opinions dictate their mood, self-esteem, and even their decisions. The Stoics recognize this danger and build an antidote, complete sovereignty over one's own judgment. Epictetus famously taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He argued that no one can disturb your peace without your consent. Your value does not reside in the hands of strangers, colleagues, or social media audiences. It resides entirely within your own judgment. Imagine your mind as a fortress. Every wall represents boundaries that protect your inner world. When you allow external opinions to dictate your sense of self-worth, you leave the gates open. Every criticism, every slight, every comparison becomes an invading force, chipping away at your inner citadel. In contrast, a fortress that refuses to surrender its core remains unshaken by attacks. This is the essence of detachment. Seneca emphasized that most suffering does not come from events themselves, but from the weight we assign to others' perceptions of us. We imagine judgments that may not even exist, and we let those imagined verdicts dictate our feelings. Freedom, therefore, comes from refusing to invest power in what we cannot control, the minds of others. Detachment is not indifference or isolation. It does not mean ignoring feedback or abandoning relationships. Instead, it is a conscious decision to measure your actions and character against your own standards rather than external applause. You can accept advice without internalizing judgment. You can notice criticism without letting it define you. You can pursue excellence without being enslaved to praise. A practical exercise. Whenever you receive feedback, positive or negative, pause and ask, does this reflect my standards or theirs? Is this within my control? If the answer lies outside your control, release it immediately. Allow your actions, not opinions, to define your self-worth. The world will always offer judgments, comparisons, and accolades. The Stoic solution was never to fight the world, but to refuse to surrender the keys to the mind. Your fortress becomes invincible not because you're isolated, but because you refuse to let external forces dictate your inner climate. Detaching from validation turns mental peace from a fragile, conditional state into a stable, habitual one. Your mind becomes your citadel, your self-worth unshakable, and your focus entirely on the work and character that truly matter. When you stop giving away your power, you reclaim the one domain that always belongs to you, your own judgment. Law 7. Memento mori. Remember mortality. The most powerful tool the Stoics used to protect mental peace was also the simplest, remembering that life is short. Memento mori. Remember you must die. At first, this may sound morbid or depressing, but it is nothing of the sort. It is clarity. It is perspective. It is a practice that reshapes the way you value time, energy, and emotion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he, his friends, his empire, and every human being alive would one day vanish. This constant awareness of mortality was not meant to instill fear, but to strip away trivialities. Petty arguments, resentment, envy, and distraction all lose their weight when measured against the brevity of life. Most people squander their mental energy on things that, in the grand scheme, are meaningless. Social media outrage, office politics, grudges, unproductive worry. These occupy space in the mind that should be reserved for what truly matters. The Stoics turned the lens of mortality on every concern. Will this matter in a week, a year, 5 years? If the answer is no, they release it. This is not avoidance. It is strategic preservation of inner calm. Remembering death also accelerates appreciation. When you know your time is limited, gratitude becomes sharper. The mundane becomes precious. Your health, your relationships, even a quiet morning, acquire value because they are temporary. Nothing is owed to you forever, and nothing is guaranteed. Accepting this fact strengthens mental resilience because your peace no longer depends on permanence. Seneca often wrote about rehearsing death, not in a gloomy way, but as a tool for focus and clarity. By contemplating the finite nature of life, you can prioritize actions that matter, speak words that carry weight, and release attachments to what cannot be controlled. This daily mental rehearsal creates immunity against fear, resentment, and distraction. A practical exercise. Each morning, reflect for a few minutes on the fact that your life is finite. Ask yourself, what is worth my attention today? What should I not waste my energy on? Let mortality sharpen your decisions, your priorities, and your emotional responses. Memento mori transforms anxiety into presence. It transforms distraction into focus. It transforms petty irritation into calm perspective. By keeping death in mind, the Stoics built mental peace that could withstand chaos, uncertainty, and the endless noise of the world. In a life governed by impermanence, peace becomes not a luxury, but a deliberate discipline. Law 8, build your inner citadel, make peace unbreakable. If there is one lesson the Stoics leave us, it is this. Mental peace is not a passive state. It is a fortress built deliberately, brick by brick, day by day. They call it the inner citadel, a mind so disciplined, so fortified, that external chaos cannot breach it. And the truth is, this fortress is accessible to anyone willing to invest in it. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that his thoughts and judgments were under his control. Even while governing an empire racked by war, plague, and political intrigue, he cultivated a mind that remained sovereign. His private reflections, compiled as meditations, were exercises in constructing this inner citadel, reminding himself that external events are neither good nor bad. Only a perception of them defines their impact. Building your inner citadel begins with self-mastery. Every Stoic law we have discussed, controlling what you can, disciplining your interpretations, limiting noise, rehearsing loss, focusing on duty, detaching from validation, and remembering mortality, are walls of the fortress. Each principle strengthens your mind against intrusion. The more consistently you practice them, the thicker your walls, the deeper your moat, the higher your towers. Daily habits cement the structure. Journaling, reflection, meditation, and conscious choice-making are the tools of construction. Before reacting to stress, pause and ask, is this worth my energy? Does it align with my values? Will this matter in the long term? Each disciplined pause is another stone in your mental wall. Each deliberate boundary, another layer of protection. The inner citadel is also about independence. The Stoics knew the world is unpredictable. Wars, betrayal, illness, and loss are inevitable. But when your peace is grounded internally, these events cannot conquer you. They may challenge your plans, but they do not touch the calm core of your judgment. Your mind becomes a fortress whose gates are not open to every passing gust of circumstance. Practical exercise. Identify one recurring source of emotional disruption. Social media, gossip, comparison, and build a defense around it. Limit exposure. Reframe interpretation. Focus on what is within your control. Over time, the intrusion diminishes and your mind becomes less reactive. The fortress grows, imperceptibly but powerfully. The ultimate lesson of the inner citadel. Peace is a skill, not a gift. It is constructed through conscious, disciplined effort. External chaos will always exist, but your mind can be inviolable. The Stoics mastered it under circumstances far harsher than ours. If they could, so can you. When you dedicate yourself to this practice, your mental peace becomes unbreakable, a stronghold impervious to the turbulence of life. In a world designed to steal your attention and your calm, the inner citadel is your ultimate defense and your ultimate freedom. Now that you've seen all 8 Stoic laws, it's time to stop thinking and start building. Mental peace is not a coincidence. It is a skill, a fortress, and a daily discipline. You cannot hope it into existence, scroll it into awareness, or wish it into permanence. You must construct it brick by brick, day by day. Start small. Pick one law this week and practice it relentlessly. Maybe it's controlling what's inside your circle, or limiting noise, or detaching from validation. Focus, repeat, observe how your reactions shift. Then add the next law. Progress is cumulative. Like building a citadel, each layer reinforces the last. Document your journey. Keep a journal. Reflect every evening. Where did you lose peace? Where did you maintain it? What external pressures try to pull you out of your center? Awareness plus consistent practice is the foundation of inner mastery. The Stoics didn't become unshakable overnight. They trained every day in small but deliberate steps. Share this wisdom. Teach someone else how to defend their mind. Peace spreads faster than chaos when you actively cultivate it and show others the path. The world may try to steal your calm, but your influence over your circle and your choices is exponential. Lead by example. Finally, remember, the world will always test you. People, events, opinions, and unexpected circumstances will challenge your serenity. That is life. What matters is that you are prepared. You are armed with discipline, perspective, and practice. Your mind becomes your citadel, unbreachable and unshakable. So start today. Apply these laws. Defend your inner world. Observe your mind transforming from reactive to resilient. And remember, while you cannot control the storm, you can control the captain. Mental peace is not a luxury. It is your power, your freedom, your secret weapon. Guard it fiercely. Build it relentlessly. Live it unapologetically.